Greetings everybody, and welcome here to Ben's Album Challenge here on Prog Monster. My name is Murph. I am the host of this show. This is a show dedicated to progressive rock and other forms of rock music. Excuse me. So for those of you who haven't been here on Ben's Album Challenge, basically Ben is a subscriber of mine, friend of mine. He picks an album every second week and I review it and give my opinions of the album, and he likes me to choose one particular song that's my favorite. This one was a little bit difficult because I had three of them I liked a lot, so I guess I got to pick out of those three. I hate doing that, but it has to be done. So this was a strong album, I have to admit. I was pleasantly surprised. Very strong album. This is the closest to sounding like Styx of any other band that I've ever heard. Really reminded me of Styx a lot. There's a lot of it's predominantly the keyboard sound on this album that gives me that Styx feeling. Sometimes I get a little feel for that from Kansas too, but not nearly as much as this. I know that this album I did after I looked at the album and listened to it, I went back to see what they had to say about it a bit. I don't normally do that, but I was curious to see if they thought the same way as I did. Mostly they compared it to Yes, so I can see where they got that impression from. For Yes, there's the vocal parts. He's definitely within that John Anderson range of sounds that I can see why they might think of it as a Yes, like being a little bit yesy, but I see it being as more Styx oriented because the keyboards are more dominant than his vocals. Overall, the bass and the drums are pretty heavy as well, so I see this as being a little bit more sounding like Styx, although I must admit it's much more progressive than Styx. The closest Styx came to something like this was probably the Grand Illusion, but I don't think it's as progressive as this album. So the band that we're talking about, having said all that, is called Starcastle, and this is their self-titled debut 1976 album. So they came out right in that period of time when a lot of these bands were getting towards the end of that progressive sound, and they fit right in. I think they're a very, very good band. I think they're an American band too. I don't remember seeing anything about their origin, but I believe they're American. Actually, I do remember them being from the St. Louis area, so they were big in that area. So my kudos to Ben for picking this album. I think it's really strong. I like the album art cover too, which is it's a castle on a cloud floating, and there's actually three of them. It's kind of reminiscent of the Boston album. Think of the Boston album with that giant guitar coming through space and then a bunch of smaller guitars further back. It's kind of like that. So you got this predominant castle on a cloud coming at you, and then further back is a couple more castles on clouds. So yeah, very strong album, I think. Lots of dominating keyboards on this album. What else? Yeah, the guitar isn't as dominant, although it does have its time periods where the solos are quite good, but strong in only points where the keyboards are kind of dominant throughout the entire album. Very Dennis D. Young sounding keyboards here as well. Drummer is fantastic. You get that a lot on the last track, which I'll get to after, but he's a very good drummer. I really like him quite a bit. The harmonies are very strong here, reminiscent of Styx. Lots of those. I actually think the harmony vocals are stronger than the lead vocals on this album. The vocalist is he's definitely in that John Anderson range, as I've mentioned. Doesn't sound overly like John Anderson, but definitely within the range, in that same kind of range. And the rhythm section, of course, as I said, is really, really the strong suit of this album, I believe. So they have 7 tracks on here. Lady of the Lake is the first track. I'm going to use my glasses here just in case I need to refer to my notes, which I probably will at point. So yeah, this is a very This starts out, got that real stick sounding feel to the entire keyboard set here. Drums are very frontal here. The vocals multi-layered, what do they call it? Melody vocals, harmony vocals. Yeah, that would probably be a better term. The guitars definitely support the keyboards here. They're not front and center. He does do a great keyboard solo on this particular track. And the track Lady of the Lake is the longest track on the album. I think it's like 10 minutes, a little bit over 10 minutes. The bass and drums, like I said, are very strong here. But the guitar isn't as prominent. I would say this has a definite Styx flavor to it. There is a part in the keyboards here that kind of reminds me of the guitar part in La Villa Strangato. So it didn't really sound like Rush at all, but that part definitely reminds me of that. Okay, the next track up, Elliptical Seasons. This one's a shorter song, about 4 minutes. Great acoustic sound, guitar sound here at the beginning. I love the synth and the bass build up here as the song goes along. There's a single lead vocal sound. His voice is a little forced, which may be because he's singing in falsetto. That could be the cause of that. I think this is a very strong keyboard solo, very strong rhythm section to this particular track. Yeah, and it's overall there's a little bit of guitar in this, but not overly dominating. This is the part that makes it a little different from Styx, is that they don't have a dominant guitar sound in a lot of their songs. It's pretty much dominated by the keyboards. The next song up is called Forces. A little bit longer than the previous track, but not as long as the opening Lady of the Lake. Another synthesizer keyboard dominated song with some guitar bits put in there to kind of break it up a bit. The rhythm section is pounding on this particular track. It's just so good. The vocals are a little bit forced again, like I said, but the twin vocals are strong and catchy, or the multi vocals, or the harmony vocals if you prefer. The keyboard solo and the guitar solo do interact here. They trade off. I think the keyboard is still a little bit more dominant, but definitely a trade-off here on the two of them. Another good song. And then so that's it for side one, which is good. Side one is good. I didn't give anything less than a 7 on side one. Side 2 I think is a little bit better. I think the overall composition of it's a little better. Stargate, which is the first track, is a shorter track, keyboard synthesizer opening with a little bit of an organ bit in here as well. Synthesizers and organ are good in here. They do add a little bit of that timpani that you get from hitting the cymbals quite a bit off of the drums, so there's a little bit of that in here. This is a entirely instrumental song. I think it's my least favorite on the album, but it's still good. I gave it a 6. So then you've got the next two tracks. Between these next two tracks is probably my favorite, although Lady of the Lake I really like as well. Could go to any of the three. Sunfield is the name of the next song. I think it's the first track on the second side, or maybe I think it might be the second track, yeah. So it's got this John Anderson sounding vocal part to it. And this is where I started to say, okay, I can see where they see the Yes sound here. There's a little bit of that there. Some great harmonies that are so good. Their harmonies are one of their strong suits, I believe. But the song does sound a little bit dated. It's kind of got that early 70s sound to it, with that kind of the keyboard part, I guess. Catchy melody, very Styx-like again. Yeah, very bright and energetic sound as well on this particular track. So I'm thinking this is probably my favorite track, and you'll have to excuse me, I'm still suffering from my video in the park the other day. Yeah, sometimes we're idiots, right? Yeah, so this song is probably my favorite track. It's very upbeat. It kind of reminds me of that Styx's I'm Okay and Light Up type of thing, you know. It doesn't sound like them, but it definitely has that feel. So the next track is called To the Fire Wind. Another keyboard track, of course. Sounds very good here. Keyboards are great. The drums and the combination of the bass and the drums here is very forward, really catchy, very strong. Keyboard solo adds a lot to this track. I think that it really brings this track to the forefront, the solo anyways. And the harmonies are very strong. So basically this song is a harmony with a keyboard track that really is really dominating. A great tune. Maybe my favorite on the album. It's between this and Sunfield. Those are my two favorites, I'm pretty sure. And then the last track, which is called Nova, is basically a percussion part, a percussion instrumental, I believe. Lots of really catchy percussion parts here too, and the drummer is really good on this. He's so good. All those triplets and everything. It's just fantastic drummer. The key part is quite catchy as well. There's a synthesizer key part towards the end of the song. Is quite good. So overall, I do really like the album cover. I think that draws you in. The music is so catchy and so, like, I didn't find myself feeling like I wish the album would end at any point. It was so good. I am looking forward to, because they've got 5 studio albums in their discography. I'm looking forward to well, at least 4 of them are released in the 70s. The other one is kind of a compilation that came out in the 2000s with some newer material on there as well. So, but I am looking forward to hopefully be able to get some of these. This would be great. These guys are really good. This is an excellent album. I gave it 3 8s, 3 7s, and 1 6, which means the album is probably in the high 7s, low 8s. Just a good album. You know, if you want to, some people like to give it out of the 5. I'd say 3.5 or a 4 out of 5 here for sure. Strong album. Definitely one that I would like to pursue and listen to more. So there you have it, Starcastle from 1976, self-titled album. Picture of a Starcastle. You won't have any problem finding this. I was going to try to put the link below, but I think the album is fairly easy to find on YouTube and to listen to, and I think it's really great. If anybody's had any experience with this album, I'd love to hear more about it. Wonder what their other albums sound like. I'm now interested to pursue these other albums as well. So I do thank Ben for suggesting this album. This is maybe one of the ones I've liked the most since going back to the IQ Awaken album that he gave me a while back, but I really enjoyed this quite a bit, and I look forward to whatever he's going to give me in the future, as he always gives me something interesting, usually something I've never heard before. Makes me wonder why he's not doing this show instead of me, but there you go. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this episode. Please hit the like button and subscribe on the side. It's much appreciated. We'll be back next Sunday night with the Great Album Challenge. I think the year we're going to be doing is 1978. Another hard year to do, as so many of those 70s years are. So many great albums. So I look forward to seeing you then. So take care and have yourself a good evening. Goodbye.